A lot of people are getting very mad about critical race theory right now, and instinctively, you probably know it's a manufactured panic.
God, I hate you.
Me or
I know John Oliver. This so triggers me because it just allows John Oliver to just completely turn his brain off. He basically said all of the people who are concerned about critical race theory are concerned over nothing. That's so far from the truth.
I know.
Do you honestly think any of the people that 12-year-old girl who tried to commit suicide at school because they basically transed her and didn't tell the parents? Are you saying that they're following some manufactured idea? Well, I guess it's not critical race theory, but
Well, we'll get into that because it's kind of interesting where this goes. But I'm interested to what he just said. He said, as you probably already know, it's manufactured. So he's not even like, let me explain to my audience a position. He's saying, oh, you already have the correct opinion. Let me reinforce.
Oh, great point. Yeah, exactly.
Like just listen, that's so fucking weird.
The very next day. So clearly, a lot of people are getting very mad about critical race theory right now, and instinctively, you probably know it's a manufactured panic.
Actually, it's worse than that. He said, instinctively, you probably know it's a manufactured panic. Okay. John Oliver is just appealing to people's elephants and their tribal identity. He's saying, listen, if you're on the left and you hear people on the right complain about something, instinctively, you know that they're wrong or that they're lying or that they're bad and that it's manufactured. That's so that one sentence is so incredibly telling.
Yeah. It's so... Go ahead. I want you to...
What does it say? It really shows a lack of John Oliver and his writing staff's understanding of human behavior and their own behavior, that they would include that line in the show. Instinctively, you already know that this is bullshit.
It's so bizarre that we have these two super contentious issues in public school right now: critical race theory and the gender ideology stuff. I mean, James Lindsay has kind of linked these in a way, hasn't he? It seems like he has. Yeah,
well, I mean, this is all coming from the neo-Marxian ideology.
Right. Yeah.
And it goes to what I was saying in the beginning of the stream, where if our society has been based upon liberal principles since its foundation, okay? And then especially if race conversations have been based on liberal principles since the civil rights movement.
And you mean individual rights when you say liberal principles?
Yeah, I know. It's so annoying.
Well, individual rights is self-explanatory.
Right.
And a lot of people are triggered. I notice a lot of people on the right are triggered by liberal principles, but they're not triggered by individual rights.
Yeah, you're right.
Fucking individual rights, fucking sign me up. Right?
We need, yes. Is it just individual rights? Is that the term I should use? Some other term?
I mean, I don't know how you're defining it, but
Western
I feel, and we think about this stuff all the time because we talk about it for hours on end when we do our live streams. But for me, the essence of it really comes down to that book, The Narrow Corridor to Liberty. We're trying to maximize individual rights for people, so that they benefit from the fruits of their own labor, and they're inspired to create, to become part of society, to innovate, to form the products and services of the future. Well, like it or not, whatever your take is on capitalism, obviously, I'm not Pollyanna about capitalism. There is corruption that takes place that we need to fight against. But this idea that we want to foster an environment where individual people can seek their own goals and projects and things like that is what we're working towards. And for me, that's what the liberal project is. And a lot of the things like objective, all of the other things kind of come out of that, like the search, like scientific objectivism, empiricism, all of those things come out of empowering of the individual. Am I wrong, or do you disagree?
No, I think you're right, and I'll try to use that term. I'll use individual rights now, as to not trigger people.
It's
and to confuse the issue.
Well, hold on a second here, because you are going to trigger people, because everyone on the left hears individual rights and they think right winger, racist, all right pipeline.
Okay, so there's no way to win.
I know it's terrible. It's terrible. It is.
What's the term? There's got to be some neutral term for this shit.
This is why we have two bubbles going on that both have their own independent language, and just saying the wrong words trigger people. So I don't know. It's funny because we got a super nice super chat about this, about how this is why we're never going to get big, because in order to get big, you really have to say, I'm going to go for this audience. This audience accepts this language. I'm going to use this language, and that's going to be my audience. So, which puts us in just a weird kind of situation.
So, okay, I have a solution. Let's piss off everyone, and I'll say
liberal individual rights.
Liberal rights.
Well, that's good. We will get a lot more people on our Tuesday stream arguing with us on how can you say liberal rights or individual rights?
Right.
Yeah.
So our entire society has been based on this principle of individual rights.
Yes. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are all about individual rights.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And it's insane to me that we're having this completely new ideology enter into the equation. You have CRT and you have all this woke shit. And it's all anti-individual rights. It's all anti-liberalism. It's all neo-Marxian conflict theory, groupthink, collectivist dredge.
Right.
Basically.
Yes.
And it's being smuggled in to the conversation. And no one's saying, wait a minute, you're basically overturning what both the left and the right in this country have been talking about since its founding.
Yes.
And we're not allowed to question it. We're not allowed to say that this is wrong without being labeled as racist or transphobic or whatever.
Yeah, they've hugely shifted the Overton window. Not only that, they're literally defining individual rights as racist, according to these critical race theory books, these white privilege books.
Not just racist, but like a conspiracy theory designed to subjugate Black people, basically.
Yeah. I brought up the 15 characteristics of white supremacy because individualism is on it. Individualism is on it.
I know. How insane is that?
Individualism.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating.
But the fact is, the fear around it is having real effects. Last year, Glenn Youngkin won the governor's race in Virginia after repeatedly promising that on his first day in office, he'd ban CRT from being taught in schools. Multiple states have passed laws outlawing the teaching of it, and Republicans are likely to make it a major focus of the midterms. When it comes to critical race theory, think of it like Rihanna's pregnancy. Even if you think it has nothing to do with you, believe me, you're going to be hearing a lot about it this year. So given that, we thought tonight we'd take a step back and look at what critical race theory is and isn't, why the panic around it has spread, and what the consequences might be for everyone involved. And I realise...
He should have said, we're going to lie about what critical race theory really is.
Well, I don't think he's smart enough to understand what it is.
He is lying. This is systemic lying all the way. He may not realize he's lying, but he is spreading misinformation.
Well, and remember, he said the goal here tonight is that we're going to talk about what it is and isn't, because they do very little talking about what it is.
Oh, you're right. Yes. They space out on that.
Yeah, they talk about that for like 10 seconds, and then the rest of the show is just look conservatives bad, essentially.
Yeah. That's his whole audience.
Yeah, which is what's so baffling about this whole segment. He barely even talks about what critical race theory is.
We're going to fill in the gaps.
Yes.
Some of you may already know what CRT is. After all, explainers on it have become one of the most common sites on the internet, along with mediocre Wordle scores and ugly monkey JPEGs sold by and for dipshits. But,
well, that's fair.
But many...
Well, that's fair. I heard that.
That's fair.
Are still very confused. A recent survey found that an overwhelming majority of US residents have a hard time articulating exactly what CRT is. And that even goes for some of those who've been...
Okay, so there's the reason for that, as someone who's read very voluminous CRT literature, is for two reasons. First of all, well, actually, it's three reasons. The first is that if you try to read a lot of CRT literature, it's written in academic gobbledygook speak, which makes the average person want to die when they read it.
Yes, myself included.
Yes, myself included as well. It's like a pain tolerance you have to work beyond. It's like you can't go running a marathon without training your body to acclimate to running long distances first. And it's terrible. It's the gatekeeping on this academic literature is insane, which is hilarious considering it's supposed to be about like tearing down these, bourgeoisie tiers and oppressive hierarchies. So you have the academic literature is written in this like fucking almost inconceivable way to break through. The literature is written to intentionally be vague, and I would even argue dishonest to some extent, because you can find CRT literature. You can find lots of neo-Marxian literature, but you can find CRT literature where they talk about how it's dangerous to try and overthrow the current system without... It's dangerous to try to overthrow the current system until the replacement system you're advocating for has taken root in people's consciousness. So basically what they're saying is until we can make socialism and black nationalism like accepted in society, we have to hide our power level, because if we just talk about overturning individual rights and liberalism right off the bat, we'll turn everyone off.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of sneak these concepts into the mainstream, and then once they grab hold, then we're like pull the tarp off and say, aha, this is what we've been advocating for the whole time.
That's terrifying.
Yes.
That's the ultimate bait and switch right there.
The whole thing, the whole thing is bait and switch. I was annoyed because there are two quotes that are highly relevant to this. I couldn't find the second one. I don't remember where I read it, but I found one of them. Let me see where it is. It's too long for me to read on stream. But even Kimberly Crenshaw kind of goes into this in one of her papers, and she even quotes Gramsci and talks about
cultural
hegemony and how you have to kind of hide your power level and all this stuff.
Gramsci,
yeah,
that loser.
And so it's just like that's why no one understands what CRT is. It's like intentionally sort of created in this dishonest way. And then you get stupid people like John Oliver, who are just the ignorant fools regurgitating garbage that they read in a Vox article, or Kimberly Crenshaw tries to go on some interview and she tries to tie a neat little bow on her ideology. And just a way to like conceive of how ridiculous this is. Imagine this would be like if there was some resurgence of neo-Nazis and they're like, oh, we're not, neo-Nazis isn't anti-Semitic. Neo-Nazis aren't racist. And you had the head of the neo-Nazi movement come out and they're describing their view of their own movement. And this would be like basically John Oliver just uncritically listening to the head of the neo-Nazi movement.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Why are we so afraid of the neo-Nazis? Look at what this guy says. He says they're not racist. He's just saying it's just a new way of looking at the world, and that we should have tight-knit communities, based on, blood and soil. And is blood and soil really that bad? I mean, come on.
This is just a new way of looking at power structures.
I know.
It's called white power structures. That's such a great analogy, because it's just insane that he's letting this stuff influence him in the way he is without looking at any of it critically at all.
Yeah, well, and this is the problem, is that all of our sense-making apparatus in America, at least, when it comes to information, all of our news sources have been completely dropped the ball. They've all been basically subsumed into partisanship bickering. And that's the primary purpose they engage in, is we want to win for Team Democrat or Team Republican. And so if they have to report on a story that helps one side or hurts the other side, that's the only lens that they can kind of view it through.
Yeah, scary.
Though I will say there was a New York Times article that was written by the editorial board that did call out cancel culture, which I liked. They did have to like kind of frame it like as if it's like a right-wing issue, but I'm hoping that that's a sign of a positive direction, at least, because they did say that the left was engaged with it too. So maybe we're finally having the slow wake up moment. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic, but
I think I read that article.
yeah, a lot of people on the left were very triggered by that article.
Really? Because they've been
Yes.
being sold the same lie that cancel culture is just a right-wing lie. So much of this stuff, so much of the rebuttal to conservative arguments is it's all just a lie.
Right.
It's so bad.